Hi, I wanted to share my top palettes of 2025. Last year, I tried 40 palettes. I didn't want to go through all 40 of them, one because I'm still getting used to YouTube and 40 feels like a lot of palettes to talk through, but also because the top 20 are palettes that I feel more familiar with. They are palettes that I've typically used more than the ones in the bottom half. They're also color stories that really resonate with me, so I just feel more excited talking about them. So that's what I'm focusing on today, the top 20 palettes that I tried in 2025. Starting off with number 20 is a collab palette. It's the Sinful Echoes Pigments of the Arcane palette. I really like this color story, and again, even though it's number 20 in my ranking, these are the top palettes that I've tried. I recently picked this up, so I didn't have as much time to play with it in 2025, but I really loved the looks that I did with it and created some really cool color combos. I wanted to try out Sinful Echoes matte formula as well, so this felt like a good purchase for me to be able to do so. I didn't have any issues working with this, and I think they have a really great formula. The next palette I have is from Nomad. It's the Ireland Wild Atlantic Way. It's greens with some blues and neutrals, but I am a green lover, so when this first was revealed, I was really intrigued by it. I'm really glad I have it. I've used this a lot for my green looks this year. I really like the selection of matte green tones in this. These are my favorite greens in general, so to have them all in this palette has been really great for me. I also think Nomad has improved their shimmers, so the shimmers in this are really sparkly, which I really like. Next up, this is number 18, is the Adept Unity palette. This is the only Adept palette I actually picked up in 2025. I have 3 others from the brand, and I really like their formulas. I know some people have issues with their mattes. I am able to blend them out and work with them, so I don't really have anything to note about their mattes. I do think where they really shine is their shimmer formula. It's very sparkly and beautiful, and this was no exception to that. I used this several times in BYOPs that I took traveling with me. This palette in particular has a good selection of neutral shimmers, so this is really great for a lot of the makeup that I wear when traveling. So it's a fun palette to play with, and I really enjoyed the looks that I did with it. Next up for number 17 is a palette that surprised me a bit. This is the Bella Beaute Bar Come Play With Us palette. I was gifted this in PR, which I am really grateful for, because receiving it really showed me how beautiful this palette is. When I first saw it, I wasn't really sure what I would do with it. As I've worked with it, I have done a lot of monochromatic looks, but also done looks that I expected. So the green and blue together, I did a neutral look with this that I wore to work, which I was really surprised by. So I like a palette that is versatile in that way. In particular, what I really love about this palette are the shimmers. I think these are some of the best shimmers Bella Beaute Bar has ever done. They are very dimensional, very sparkly. I also don't find them to be overly emollient, so this palette really surprised me, and I really loved all of the looks I've done with it. Number 16 is the Clionadh Light Scatters palette. This is a collab palette with Millie Bad to the Brow. And when I first saw her reveal of this, I was intrigued by this. I really like the Clionadh singles that I have, but I held off on getting this for a while. I really loved the looks I do with this. It's not ranked higher simply because it's not a standalone palette for me. I have to pull in mattes from other palettes. I don't ever do all shimmer looks, but this has been a great pop in a lot of the looks. Step for number 15 is another Bella Beaute Bar palette. This is Green Goddess. I was kindly gifted this from Kelly. Her Instagram handle is Highly Hazel. She saw this was on my wish list and generously offered to send me hers. I actually did dupe this, and I still kept thinking about it. I am a very big green lover. I love this packaging. I love the concept of this. I have done looks that I really love with this. I am so glad to have this palette, and I have used this more than I thought the second half of the year that I had this palette. For number 14, it is the Gourmande Girls Trap palette. This is one that I was also sent from a friend, Noobor Makeup, both on Instagram and YouTube here. Sent this to me. It is a green and purple pink color story, which are some of my favorite colors to use. My one complaint about this palette is that there's a matte black. That's just a personal preference. I don't like matte blacks in palettes. I think color stories can be more creative and don't need to default to that. But overall, Again, love the looks I've done with this. I really enjoy the Gourmande Girls formula, and so this is number 14. For number 13, I have the Dieverune Cosmetics Gloomy Gardens palette. This is the first palette I tried from the brand, and I really enjoyed working with this. I've heard some people have issues with the mattes in this palette, but I didn't have any issues in terms of formula. Where I do think there could have been some changes is I think some of the tones are a little bit too similar, especially on my skin tone. I think the shimmers in this are beautiful. I really like the looks that I did with this. I was really inspired by this color story, and I also really like that these are magnetic pans. I can use this for BYOPs, which I've actually done quite a few times this past year. Number 12, I have the Makeup Beauty Shop and Pixie Glow collab palette, La Luna. Love this color story. My issues with this palette are I don't think the matte formula holds up to the matte formulas I really love in my collection. It is a bit thinner, it doesn't pack as well, sometimes the shades don't layer well on top of each other, but Makeup Beauty shimmers are probably my top two, up in my top two shimmers in my collection. They are so sparkly, so dimensional, so beautiful. I have created some great looks with this despite the matte formula not being my favorite to work with, but that is why it didn't hit the top 10, but it's still up there. Number 11 is from Dede's signature, Drops of Fantasy. As a color lover, this color story just spoke to me so much. I wasn't sure about the formula from Dede's signature, so I held off on picking it up, but Brittany, I will link her Instagram handle, offered to send it to me, which I am so grateful for. I didn't include this in my top 10 simply because I only used it twice, and I don't think it's fair to put a palette in my top 10 when I've used other palettes more than, but I know I'll continue to use this, and I know this will be a favorite in my collection. One note that I do have with this is that some of the shimmers are a little bit more emollient than I prefer in my shimmer formula, but they're still very beautiful. They didn't crease on me, but just wanted to note that if you were eyeing this palette. We're now in the top 10 of my favorite palettes of 2025. Starting off with number 10 is the Glaminatrix Barely Basic palette. I am not a neutral palette person, but when I saw this one, I was very in love with it. I think it is a spicy neutral palette, elevated neutral palette. With the shimmers especially, they are very amped up, so you can create some really beautiful looks with this. Next up, number 9 is the Nomad Chamonix Apres-Ski palette. This color story is some of my favorites. I love greens like I mentioned, but also I have two sisters and their favorite colors. One of them, my older sister, loves blues, and my younger sister loves pink and purple. So this color story, when I saw it, just made me feel like it was my sisters and I in a color story. It's so beautiful. I love the looks that I can do with it. The light shades aren't my favorite in this palette, but everything else with this palette has just been really great to work with. I really enjoy the formulas in here. Nomad really amped up the shimmers in this, and they're really beautiful. Number 8 is the Cosmic Beauty 'Tis the Season palette. This is a beautiful color story that is both fall and winter in a palette. I really love the tones of green in this. They're some of my favorite green shades to work with. I am not as much of a orange red wearer, but I think paired with the other shades in this palette, I've been able to do some looks that are different than the looks I usually go for. And I think the shimmers in this are just so much more beautiful. They're very twinkly, very reflective on the eyes, and I really, really loved how these looked. In spot number 7 is the palette that I'm actually wearing on my eyes today. It is the Bella Beaute Bar Crystallize palette. I received this one in PR, which I'm really grateful for. This color story is so beautiful. I saw a few people mention that they thought this palette goes a little too light. I personally found, both in looking at it in person as well as using it, is that I think it is more of a mid-tone palette. I am someone who likes just working with mid-tone. All of the looks I've done with this have been so, so beautiful. The shimmers in this, again, I think I said this before, but Bella Beaute Bar has really, really improved their shimmers throughout this year. This was their last release of 2025, and the shimmers in this are just incredible. So dimensional, so sparkly, beautiful on the eyes. I really, really love this palette. Number 6 is the Dieverune Magnetic Mineralia palette. This is a collab that they did with Andromeda, Andromeda on Instagram. I will link their handle below as well. I received this in PR, which I'm really grateful for. I really admire Andromeda. They create incredible looks. They are so creative. They do really cool color combos and cool use of shapes on their eyes. I've just been so inspired by their work, and I was really excited when they told me about their collab and also that they wanted to send it to me. When I first saw it, I'll admit I wasn't sure about it because it is a little bit more cooler toned and a little bit more neutral than what I prefer. But I have done some of my favorite looks using this palette. What makes a palette something that I really like is the looks that I do with it. So part of this is probably because it's Andromeda's palette. I feel inspired by their work, so it really pushes me to do looks that I wouldn't do, and those looks have just been really fun to do, and also I think really cool looks in my opinion. This palette had to be in my top favorites just because I used it quite often this year, and it just pushed me in a direction that I didn't think I would go in. The top 5 of my favorite palettes I tried in 2025. Starting off with number 5, Fantasy Cosmetica Harvest of Souls. This is another palette that came out in 2024, but I only picked it up this year. I love this color story. It has light to deep tones. It doesn't default to a black. I love blues and greens and purples, and all of the shades are in this palette. I have done some looks that I think are very creative for me with this palette. I did a couple of collabs with this palette that really inspired me to try some new things. So overall, just a beautiful color story and a palette I really loved. Next up in spot number 4 is another Bella Beaute bar palette. This is the Coalescence palette, which was in collaboration with Nomad. I was lucky enough to receive this in PR, which I am really grateful for. I love Nomad's content. I followed her for a few years now. She creates beautiful, sparkly looks. It also is really heartwarming as a South Asian, as someone of Indian descent, to see somebody with my skin tone really thrive in the indie space. I love the color story of this palette. I consider it muted, colorful. The shimmers themselves are brighter, more vibrant, while the mattes are a little bit more subdued, but they're still colorful. I also really appreciate or really love, it just means a lot to me that there are 4 shades in here that are Sanskrit. It's really cool just seeing something that I've heard growing up in a palette reflected in my collection. Next up in spot number 3 is the Gourmande Girls Call of the Sirens palette. It's a jewel tone dream. It's so beautiful, so vibrant. I did take this on a trip with me to Turkey and Greece over the summer, so I also feel like there's some sentimentality attached to this palette now, but the looks I've done with this have been so beautiful. The shimmers in this are really beautiful and sparkly. Everything in this I think has a purpose, which I really like, and I love the color story. We're at the last 2 palettes in this ranking, my favorite 2 palettes of the year. Honestly, these could probably be interchanged, but this is where I wanted to place them today, so we're gonna go with it. Starting off with number 2 is the Titanium Foxes Hidden Piece palette. I really love this brand, and this is my favorite color story from the brand. This color story just feels like me. I love greens, blues, purples. There are some warmer shades which aren't always my favorite, but I think they work really well with the rest of this palette. I have created some of my favorite looks this year using this palette. I love the shimmer formula. I love the matte formula. Everything's just beautiful to work with. I have no issues with it. So it had to be my second favorite palette of the year. With that, we are now at my favorite palette of the year, which is the Dieverune Cosmetics Bizarre Botanicals palette, which I did receive in PR. This palette ranked a little bit higher for me than Hidden Piece just because the shimmers in this are more dimensional. The shimmers in Hidden Piece are beautiful and sparkly, but they don't have as much multicolored sparkle as some of the shimmers in this palette too, and that's just been a favorite for me for 2025, so I had to give this the #1 spot. I also really love that this palette is magnetic, so I've been able to pull this into BYOPs and use them there. But this color story is just everything I love. Greens, bright tones, vibrancy. You have beautiful sparkly shimmers. You have mattes that are really easy to work with. They work well together. I just really loved every look I did with this palette. Something I'm just constantly inspired by. I love the looks. I just want to keep playing with it, and I'm really excited to have it in my collection, and it is well deserving of the #1 spot in my opinion. So that ends my top 20 palettes of the year. I think all of them are beautiful color stories, really easy to work with, and I just felt inspired by all of those color stories. I hope you enjoyed learning what my favorite palettes were. If you want to share what yours were, I'd love to know. Thank you for watching.